something like that, meeting in Bloomington. Last year, we thought we would make a preparation, but because I was so sick, we didn't have a preparation. But I guess it worked out okay, and this year, we didn't prepare either. And I'm not sure what we're going to talk about. However, this year...
I'm starting. And I want to say what we're doing here. All of us have, at one time or another, one personality in music that makes a huge impact. You are waiting for that, or maybe it's already happening to you all. And I have felt, reading through, as you know, I read through all the biographies of the people or the participants who are coming to Piano Texas, and I'm kind of aware of the reading between the lines. When a student or a participant writes that they have taken lessons with this person and master classes with this, and I shook hands with another one, and I went to a concert with another one. It just, to us, to me anyway, and I know that for Miss Penneys, there was one huge element in our lives that we share, and we cannot get over it, because we live it every day. And this is, in a way, we are celebrating him, György Sebők. You talk.
Okay, well, I, unfortunately, not to contradict Professor Unga, I've had I've had a huge amount of what I would call aha influences. And some of them were more positive and some of them were negative, but I'm going to just talk about the positive ones. The first one was, which I was telling somebody was life-changing, when I heard Rubinstein when I was 3 years old. That's lit the piano light for me. That was just a revelation. And I can still remember everything he played. And now I'm 78. Then I studied with Albi Serko, who was a Schnabel student, and that made, I would say, equally positive and negative impact. And I can actually talk about this in the next class. He was a very complicated guy, but that whole Schnabel tradition, I think, has its place in the universe of music. And then I studied with Rosina Levine at Aspen when I was 13. I'm way too young to go to Aspen, but I was there. That's another chapter. And then during those years, I had a fantastic ballet teacher, Carmelita Marachi. You can look her up. She gave me just an incredible dance foundation. And then I discovered György Sebők by hearing him play the opening run of the Chopin Polonaise for cello and piano, and that just was like, woo! So I dragged myself all the way to Bloomington, but I actually, I didn't get to meet him right away. And then another really interesting influence was Pressler, which was a very easy and positive experience for me. So that's a lot. When I play and when I teach, the older I get, the more resonances come up from all these influences. But the thing that was so obvious and rewarding about Sebők is that he was clearly a huge genius in a way that these other people, as wonderful as they were just not on that level. I mean, it's hard to describe because you cannot put into words the greatness of this man. Not so much. I mean, I know. I think I have to call you Tama here.
Yeah, all right.
I know that Tama had a much more personal relationship. He had the advantage of speaking Hungarian, and I never felt really close to him because I don't know. And well, of course, I didn't mention János Starker. So he was another and Joseph Gingold.
Yeah.
So we were in Bloomington when it was really the golden period of Bloomington.
If there's a golden age for piano, we had a golden age of Indiana.
That's right. So each person
Well, you
leaves
didn't
a
have
resonance.
the chance to mind his house and mind his dog, which I had the pleasure of doing.
Bundash?
Bundash, yes.
Yeah, Bundash, the human biter.
Well, the reason why I wanted to start is because last year you start to ask questions. We don't know who was his teacher.
Yes, that's right.
And I went out.
And did you find
and
out?
I searched, and I did.
How did you find?
Well, I know that he was born in Szeged.
Right.
And I played a lot of times in Szeged, and I knew the faculty there. And I asked them to search the books going
fantastic.
back to the 30s, because that's before. And so you wouldn't believe it. There was a Baranyai, János Baranyai, who was his main teacher there, but he left. And he went to Debrecen. And so somebody in the conservatory, the academy in Budapest, said, we should send somebody down to Szeged and teach some of the students. And guess who it was? György Sándor.
You're kidding.
Yeah. Sándor was a student of Bartók. He was a young guy at that time. And he needed money, so he traveled every week. And he taught Sebők until Sebők left to go. According to the books, he left in 38 to go to Budapest.
How much older was he than Sebők?
I have no idea. I didn't go that far.
Well, we can look that up. Because,
yes, yeah.
But so what I understood from just, being around Sebők, that he didn't have a very high opinion of Sándor. Because when Sándor's name would come up, he would say, I don't want to talk about him, or he became angry.
Oh, well, maybe he had a rough time with him.
He must have.
Yeah.
But who did he study with before that?
Well, there was I don't know. That I don't know. But his father sent him to the conservatorium in Szeged.
And how old was he? We don't know. But
the thing about it is that I did know that he was there for about 8 years as a student. So from the age of 8 to 18. He left when he was 16. That's according to the
I'm
book.
sure that he wasn't a beginner when he got there.
No. But what I understand from after we had our conversation and all these came back, it was Vica, his wife, who, when he passed away, mentioned something about his father and his grandfather, who were both doctors and who put a lot of ideas in his mind about philosophy, physics, and astronomy and everything. They used to sort of plague him with a lot of these questions, even as when he was a youngster. So he grew up in the milieu of something which is, I think that he was always inquisitive. You remember he had all sorts of gadgets that he didn't play with it. Well, maybe he'd played in private.
I think he did, and he was really into astronomy and philosophy.
Yes.
And all kinds of medical inventions. And his life was, the thing about all of his other interests was, and that one of the things that made him a unique teacher, is that he wasn't really talking just about piano. He was really making piano a piece of the universe and our galaxy. And the analogies that he would give were just extraordinary.
Well, especially the physics. I remember him talking about the choreography of the body to make a certain sound. And I still use that idea, that the way you approach a sound, the choreography is the result of the sound.
Right, and I think that I, as a former dancer, when I went to his studio, well, the other thing about both Sebők and Starker, who were child prodigies, right? And they both said to me on separate, and I was raised as a child prodigy, which is actually not an easy, that's not an easy way to be raised. But they both had to go inside themselves and undo and redo their relationship with the instruments. Because it's very rare that when you learn how to play very well at a very young age, that particular setup can be used all through your teenage and then adult life, and certainly in your old age. So the more versatile you are and the more you know about how to deal with your body, the better off. And I could see that they both knew a ton about that, and they were teaching. Starker's whole idea was called the organized method of string playing, which was something that Sebők hated because he didn't like the terminology and he didn't like that it was a closed system.
Yes.
He always had an open system, which was very interesting, but he was a lot more complicated to deal with, for sure.
You know, one of the things I wish he could be here from another point of view. We know that he suffered an awful lot during the Second World War. He was not in a concentration camp, but he was in a workers' camp. I know he told me that he was in Romania, and his task was, with all hundreds of others, to open a road which they thought that the German army will come through to Hungary, because Hungary was part of the German side, and it turned out that eventually the Russians used it. But I don't think it was much of a road, because what happened was he had to break bricks, stones. Now, you could be talking about a pianist who had to have I don't know how many pounds, and he had to do it for 8 hours like that, breaking stones all the time. What I'm getting at is I would love to ask him once, how come he didn't have, how was he reborn? Because he immediately, it's amazing what he gave the premiere of the third Bartók concerto in 1945 in Hungary. And that means that we were liberated, so-called we, the Hungarians were liberated on 4th of April in 1944. So within a year, there were enough people to play the music in the orchestra, and he was already giving concerts with
I think I have an idea.
Go on.
The reason I have an idea is because of what I'm still going through, so it'll take me a year to recover.
Yeah.
I'm not, I just started to play the piano again after a year of not being able to play because of the swelling and the pain and the closing because of the chemotherapy. And I've had a lot of, I could say, made-up conversations with him about that, because, he talked about how swollen and how tough, he didn't even recognize.
Tore his skin off.
And that how he didn't think he would ever be able to play again. I understand this now a lot better. And how he went to the piano and he didn't even feel any connection with the instrument emotionally. And how I think that he must have had one of these illumination moments like I had, where there was some power, something that was stronger than his consciousness that really pulled him back to the piano, so that he started. Well, I remember him telling me at one lesson that he started to work on his hands, massage them and all that, which if anybody has seen me here every day, I'm working on my hands constantly to get the inflammation down and get back to normal. And then one day he said the skin, he was just able to pull the skin off his hand, his right hand, and there was his hand. Yep. And he was overwhelmed. And I think one of the closest pieces to him was the Adagio of the Bach Toccata, and that was the first thing he played. Right. After that, and of course his hands were stiff and sore, and and so that led him back. And then I think he probably more and more played and worked on it. And I had never asked him if he had any residual side effects
of the war.
Of his hands or anything.
Oh, no.
I just never even thought to ask such a question. If he were here today, of course I would.
Yeah, that's what I want to ask.
Well, I would say probably no, because of how he played, and just like I think eventually I will recover completely.
Well, I'm just saying this to all of you, because all of us have down moments. Not only competitions, but things not work out. through friendship and all that sort of thing. But compared to that, what he went through is really to rediscover music and the pull of music, to heal him as such, because I'm sure that he was hurt to the core that 5 years of his life, you know,
disappeared.
It wasn't a question of he could practice. He didn't have a bed, I'm sure, and in those times you just slept wherever you could find, and it wasn't a question of practicing. You just couldn't. There was no such thing as a piano anywhere nearby.
So what happened after he was liberated? Where did he go? And how did he get to Bloomington?
Well, at first he was living in Paris for about 6 years, I know that.
How did he get there?
He just followed 56. In 56 he left, like a lot of others.
And Starker was already there.
Yes,
yeah. That's what I thought.
And, but he had somebody who he could rely on for food for a while. And then supposedly he gave a concert, a small concert, and then people were saying this is an incredible thing happening, and Arato, the record company, offered him, and that's where we got the 6 or 7 recordings of him. I don't know, do you know those?
I haven't.
Yeah, yeah.
And then Starker went to Bloomington.
Yeah, he went, but it was Bain actually who got him there.
Well,
more than anything,
through Starker.
Well, Dean Bain, was a character, was a imposing character, much like I suppose Churchill was, or something huge, and he got the go ahead to make Indiana the best music school in the world, and so he went hunting, and he went after certain people like Gingold from Cleveland, wasn't he? And then Starker was there, and Gooley. Primrose there, yes, and Gooley, and other Pressler, and just amazing how he got all these people together on the first floor, and and it became a hub of music making. I only know that I was very lucky to be admitted in his class. I only a long time after, I must say, I really appreciated how lucky I was, because the quality of the people there, like Rebecca, was pretty high amongst all the other students.
One of the things that was different in those days is if you wanted to study with somebody, you could contact that person directly.
Yeah, yeah.
And that person, that teacher could actually make a space and pull you into the school, provided you had decent grades and all the rest. It wasn't much more personal.
Yes.
Than it is today, where you have admissions. Well, there was an admissions office, but they were very lenient and allowed each teacher to build their own class.
Yeah. I never met him. My first meeting with him was, it was a circular driveway, and so we met at for the first time, 2 o'clock or 3 in the afternoon, and I was waiting, and this humongous car came around.
Lincoln, it was a Lincoln.
Lincoln, I don't know, I did not know cars at that time, but I couldn't see the driver because he was so tiny, he was so small that he had to look through the what do you call it?
The space between the steering wheel.
But
that was actually true of Pressler too. He is like, you couldn't see anybody driving.
Yeah, it was. I was, and this car stops, and out comes this man, and in Hungarian, there is a way of speaking respectfully, and I learned that, but I wasn't very fluent in that. I talked to my parents and my friends in the French two, and vous I had to talk to him in the most respectful way, and I had to relearn it. By the way, that you talked about Robert Weiss. That's one of our major. Robert Weiss was came in on sabbatical when Sebők was on sabbatical, and I left his studio and went to Pressler for the 2 months, because Robert Weiss could not stand the fact that I did not call him sir.
You're kidding? No.
he didn't like, he was very much against, but I spoke Hungarian to him too. The thing is that out comes this
Shrimp.
But the first thing I noticed was his hand. When he shook hands, it was like he enveloped my hand. I could feel that there was electricity in this man. And so we talked about what we're going to do. This was summer, the beginning of summer, 67. And we talked about this last year, but we have to mention it again. He just mentioned the idea, look, next Wednesday or a week from today, why don't you do a Mozart concerto? You know, something. And I said, well, which one? He says, well, do the B flat, the last one. Okay. And I went and I got the music in the library and I started practicing. I went for my lesson and there he was sitting at the second piano, and I put my music and I looked at him and we looked at each other, and he said, it's not from memory. And I could feel my whole being sort of shriveled up. I could not believe that he would expect me to learn a Mozart concerto from memory in that short a time. And he just looked at it and said, well, next time you come, you have to come for memory or don't come. Anyway, he said, give me the music. And he was very nice about it in a very pleasant way. And I said, but I don't know it from memory. He says, okay, play. And the worst thing that could happen, he played the orchestra part from memory. And if that doesn't give you a feeling of that big, nothing else. And when he played, I had to stop because it was so honest. So I could never come up with that, not in a week, in a lifetime. Immediately, you know, the B-flat concerto has this soul food, this. I always feel that Mozart somehow knew that this was his last concerto. Somehow it has this darkness and yet optimism about it that is so absolutely gorgeous. And he got that idea, and which it took me years after to appreciate that, but that was a moment that I will never forget. After that, I always went with memory. I much rather acted that I was ill, but I always went from memory. There was another, do you have similar experience?
My experience was in a week bring Bartók's second first movement, concerto, from memory. That was a killer.
But you did it.
Well, I did it, but I remember the end of it was really sloppy. I mean, I could barely get through it, and he was laughing. But, you know, I did it because I didn't have a choice. I mean, I never practiced so much or so hard for one lesson before or since, and I never will do it again. I mean, it was tough because it's really a hard piece.
There was another occasion which I remember very strongly, which really goes for all of you, which afterwards it became a mantra, a standard practice for me ever since then. I remember my lesson was at 2 o'clock, which was a good time because he would have lunch, he would take lunch and he would come in at 2 o'clock, 1:59. Right?
Right.
Right, of the circle. And so I approached the door and I heard a sound. And so I assumed that either he didn't take lunch or there was another lesson going. So I didn't feel comfortable. And what I heard was several notes and then nothing. And then again, several notes and there's nothing. And I got panicked. I remember the feeling that my professor must be ill. Something's wrong. I never heard somebody to repeat the same passage again and again, and there is breaks between it. So, knock, and I walked in and I said in Hungarian, is there something wrong? And he had his cigarette like that, still in his mouth. I said, what do you mean something's wrong? I'm practicing. And I said to him, is this practicing? He says, yes. I play and I listen, and if it doesn't fit my ears, I repeat it again. And I said, do you always practice like this? Well, I know the music, I just want to hear it how I want to play it. And it was amazing, because after that I tried to do it with some success later on. At that time I was singing away, but it wasn't successful in a way. But it was really something else. And another thing I remember...
Do you know what he was practicing? Do you remember?
It was, yes, it was actually the chaconne, the Handel chaconne, which he loved starting the program with. But he played it millions of times.
Well, he never practiced, let's get real. I mean, well, I think that was the biggest reason he wasn't more famous, because he hated to practice, and he would rarely practice.
My feeling is that he didn't sell himself.
And he didn't practice. I mean, there's no question that he didn't practice.
Well, I know that.
Even he would always tell us he didn't practice.
So who?
He would say, I never practiced.
The thing is that he was the worst enemy of himself. He didn't put his name forward. If somebody didn't... I
think that all the experience that he went through in the war...
Maybe.
I think that had a really... he was extremely traumatized. I don't think he totally recovered.
Well, I wish we could hear it. So the reason why we're doing all this, reminiscing about one person, is not only he had this incredible, not power, but influence over us, which we still live, but we're trying to emulate what he did to us, and that is to try to encompass music as just one aspect of life. There are other aspects. He could talk about, as I said, philosophy and history, and the deep understanding of history that he, in his personal way, could pass on, apropos of what you were playing at that time. You know, he would, in a Mozart sonata, he would say, those chords that you are playing, don't you think that it is, after all, the French Revolution? But I said, well, he lives in Austria, says it rippled through the world. And he would bring out historical things that I could never imagine would be relevant, but it was relevant. And I took that over. I now talk all the time trying to find ways of means. He was a worldly character, really somebody who could live with, who could talk to anybody and everybody.
One of the most interesting things about his teaching is that if you look at the different, well, let's see, he started there in 64, I think.
Yep.
And he died in what year?
99.
99. So, you know, he was there for many years. And with each, like, you can sort of feel like for each 5 years almost, his teaching shifted. So when you compare students that studied with him, your
I was the younger one.
or my time, which was just a teeny bit later, and then the next group, and the next group, and the next group, he didn't say, it's like he wasn't the same person. He wasn't talking about the same stuff all the time.
No.
And that's a shame that there aren't more videos to show the range of what he was talking about. Most teachers, they have like a theme, and they have a way, and then, like, you know, the joy that Pressler, and the enthusiasm and the love of music that he showed every time, and that just permeated him.
Yeah.
You didn't see that with Sebők, because he was like a chameleon. He changed all the time. And I found that kind of scary over the years, because you never knew what to expect, even just in a conversation.
Do you remember when he stopped smoking?
He was the smoker that didn't smoke. We all heard about that. I'm a smoker that doesn't smoke.
Yeah, he was terrible. He didn't, his temper and everything.
And then he was the non-smoker who smoked again.
Yeah.
He switched back.
Right. But I remember there was an absence that I did not see him, and then went to Erdnen 3 times. Erdnen is a small little town, discovered actually by Vica. I remember he talked about that, his wife. And it supposedly, if we go back to the 13th and 14th century, it was a hub of culture, and then it became a small village again. And he made it into Musikdorf, music festival.
His original name for it was, he wanted to call it the Festival of the Future.
Yes.
And I guess that name kind of got dropped.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's how he envisioned it, as the Festival of the Future. And they loved going there.
Oh, yes. So we had, the school had one piano, and he invited violinists, cellists, everybody. And there was always the church where you played concerts. And it was a peaceful, wonderful 2 weeks or 3, I'm not sure.
I think it was 2 weeks.
2 weeks. Of where I went with my wife and 2 children, and he seemed to taken by the idea. We had wonderful conversations about festivals and the meaning of what we have. By the way, it's amazing that we haven't seen each other for nearly 50 years, and look what Miss Penneys has done here, which is amazing.
And look what you have
what
done.
I have done, which is just as amazing, and concurrently. So we must have had some sort of a whatever. It is what it is. But to us, he was more than just a teacher. And he never ever had, I never had the notion that he hasn't got enough time for me. I was telling Rebecca the other day, I got a sabbatical in 1984. I was invited to York University in England and Oxford University to be whatever they call a Livium scholar. And I called up Sebők and I said, I need to talk to you. And I made up a story. I need to talk to you because I need a inspiration what to do for a whole year, which was, let's put it this way, BS. I just wanted to see him. And I just wanted to have an afternoon of just talking to him. And he received me open arms, and we had coffee in his study. And we just talked about making music and everything. I didn't need that. I knew that I had to go and I had to teach and I had to do all these sort of things. But talking to him was always a feeling that there wasn't enough time. It's just simply not enough time because wisdoms or drops of words just came out that I wish I could remember. There is a book about, you know, that somebody put together some sayings. Is that good? I have it
well,
too.
I had it. I don't have it anymore, but
it's okay?
I can send it to you.
No, I have it. I have it, but I have just read it at the beginning. And he always dropped this thing. During lessons too, I remember playing and then he would say something like, I can't imagine music like that. And that would, he said, why can't you see it from a different angle? And that's all you needed to do. And it was just very powerful. Very, very powerful. I don't think we have that power anymore with our
life
students.
has changed so much. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, but I never had the ability to converse with Sebők or Starker. I mean, when I would go into Starker's studio, in fact,
You played.
to play for whoever was playing, or even to play for him, I mentioned to Felice Magendans, I don't know her. I said, well, gee, I feel like I'm crossing the Red Sea just to get from the door to the piano, and she told him that. And he came upstairs to the second floor where I was practicing whatever I was practicing. He opened the door and he said, and his eyes was like so penetrating. He said, are you afraid of me? And I just like wanted to crawl under the piano. And I said, maybe. He said, well, you shouldn't be afraid of me. But after that, I was even more frightened. I mean, there was no way to do that. And I never felt completely comfortable with Sebők because he would say something that was so, you know, like, I'm at this level, and it was so up here. There was no comeback. And so I just would resonate with that. I don't know if he and his wife had normal conversations about what are we having for dinner or this or that. I just can't imagine. I can't imagine that level of communication.
Do you remember the parties he
Yes.
had? Do you remember there was one phenomenal thing which I could never forget, and later on she told me how they did it. That you would have to think of a person, and he would go out and we
And
discuss
then he would
what
know who the person
then he would
was.
come back and
I
he
never.
would,
How did he do that? How did they do that? The
well, according
prearrangement.
to him, when there was some sort of a signal that she gave him, what was this being discussed? But we were floored. That some way he found out who the person we were talking about while he was in absence. And it was a game, you know, we were students, and of course we were floored by him. And of course we were floored by the wonderful welcome he had in his home, Starker too. You didn't eat for days because you knew that you're going to be fed at the time. And it was a warm feeling.
I think that has gone more and more out of the university culture. Even though you want to be close to your students, there was that openness. Well, it was sort of like Piatigorsky in California was that way. That was part of the old world.
Yes.
Or like when you stayed in your teacher's house. You know, that was the end of that.
But they lived, I have a feeling that they talked. I have a feeling.
They must have. I mean.
You know, I mean, I don't think that she would interfere with his life, musical life, but they went together everywhere. And she looked after him because I don't think he knew the size of his shirt. You know.
I don't know.
But I must say I was lucky. Yes, the barrier was. No, he spoke well with Annie Petit. He spoke and Francoise. He spoke French.
His English really improved a lot over the years, and hers did not. But his really got. He had a real ear for languages, no question.
Yes. Well, when Christopher, you mentioned that that's one of the things he had. He could speak German in one sentence, and then French, and then Hungarian, and then English. He had this incredible he just ability to do. And during class too, sometimes he would speak to French, and then he would look at me and say it in Hungarian, and then just general English, which I didn't understand if it was a secret language or something like that we had to understand. But I'm surprised that you didn't talk to him on a personal level.
I just never found, I mean, it's not like I didn't talk to him at all, but I never had a really close personal relationship with any of my teachers, I don't think. I mean, it's just definitely not with Pressler. I was too busy playing jokes on Pressler. I mean, I decided, I don't even know why I decided this. There was something that Pressler did. Well, I know what it was. He always got to school at 7:30 to practice, and I got to school very early. And I wanted to see if he would come out of his studio, what would make him open his studio door like between 7:30 and 8. So I put from the coffee machine, a paper coffee cup, and I put it. This is terrible to say. Maybe I'll have to erase this from the tape. But I put it I was a little taller than Pressler, not by much, but I just put it out of his reach. And every day I would go in there and drop whatever I had, like a penny, a quarter, or whatever. And I wanted to see how long it would be before he took his chair and pulled it out of the studio to see how much money was in this cup. And I was hiding, I mean, it took my morning practice time away because I was hiding around the corner. And then the day came. It wouldn't take very many days. It only took about 5 days until he came out and took the cup down. And then, I don't know, maybe it was 2 or 3 days later, he said, "Rebecca." I don't know how he knew it was me. You know, it was just like, I guess it was, who else would it be? He said, "Please don't do that. It interrupts my practicing because I get so curious. I can't concentrate on what I'm doing." So that's...
But Pressler always practiced at least 4 hours every day. Every day, there was no...
I don't think sometimes he didn't make every day because he had an early student, but he was always there at 7:30.
Well, wanted to get out of home. We want to open it up if you have any other questions, not about this, but
Any
anything.
questions about anything?
Our experiences with our own teachers is something should resonate within you as you embark on your career as students. I think it's up to each individual what you make of the value of your teacher. It takes two to tango always, don't forget. If you don't care, I make a bet with you, your teacher won't care either. But if you put that extra mile on, you do extra work, there is a reciprocal feeling in all of us that we want to help, we want to be part of our students' life. Any questions?
Any comments?
Or comments?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm a bit curious. I've heard this as both of your are teachers and also performers. I know some musicians who really don't like to teach because they think teaching affects their performance, and some people stop performing, practicing because they want to focus on teaching. Do you know anyone like your teachers or like yourselves?
I can tell you that I cannot practice, I cannot get anything done for myself after I finish, that's of value, I should say, after I finish teaching all day, because what happens is that all of the students, as wonderful as they are, and as much as you want to help them, they leave like an imprint in your body, and so you're full of all this extra buzzing of energy and everything else, and you're not as fresh. So for me, it's always been, and it still is, to practice in the morning when I don't have any, it's not only students, but you know, if your car breaks down or you have to go to the bank or all this shopping or whatever, it wears you out to a certain extent. So I find it's much better to practice in the morning. That has another advantage for me is, you know, when you first wake up, your coordination system, your physical apparatus is a little bit slow. And I find that's tremendous value because things go in at a slightly deeper level than, you know, because you're a little bit slow and things resonate a little bit more deeply than if you're already had your 3 cups of coffee and you're buzzing around really high. So there's an art to that switching, and I think everybody has to find that place for themselves.
Well, I think it should go hand in hand. There's a certain time with everybody, including those who are only performing at the moment and who give only slight master classes here and there. There's a feeling of giving back what you learned, and also a feeling that you have to hand down tradition to a certain extent, because it depends on all of you now, and all of us giving it to you, the future of classical music. It will never die. It will go in up and down, and people say it's not so popular now, but you look at the YouTube and there's one person or one performance gets 1,000, 10,000 hits or 1,000,000 hits. So I don't think that it will die, but it is up to each individual one of us to maintain a vigilant aspect that the future lies in our hands. So teaching is not only for the future, but also, and you become a better performer in many ways.
Well, that's important. I was telling somebody today that it would be great for them, it would be great for all of you to have a couple students, because you will learn how to teach yourself really quickly. So it doesn't matter whether you think you can teach or you don't think you can teach, you should give it a go. And you'll learn, you'll help somebody, and you'll learn a tremendous amount about yourself. And you often hear teachers talking about how much they learn from their students. So it really helps you open that door inside yourself if you teach. So you just have to find out the best time and place to do that.
And not only that, when you're teaching, you have to listen. And that is very, very important, because when you start to listen to another person, as you know in your classes, when you go in a studio class, you listen to your classmates performing, that's what happens. You become more and more aware that you're listening. And if you transfer that into your practicing and performing, that's a huge, huge step in the right direction. And we always talk about the fact that we feel that many of you don't listen to what you are playing. You enjoy the physical nature of playing the piano, but creating a story behind it, or something that goes behind the music to find out what was in the mind of the composer when they put it onto paper. I think that's where the real task is at hand for all of us. And it doesn't mean that I want to find out how Mozart felt in his time. It's how I, and 200 years later, feel about what he must have felt. And of course, that's the whole point, because Schnabel felt differently about Mozart than Brendel. And yet it's a generation apart, but still. And the next generation, Paul Lewis plays Beethoven quite differently already. So that's the beauty of it. I think a lot of people say, oh, the good old times. Yes, it is good old times, but I feel very strongly that that's the magic of music. It lives. It lives through different times in a different way. Thank goodness. Can you imagine if we would stop the music and we have to repeat what was at a certain time? It would die. It would lose interest. So you're carrying on the torch. And by the fact that you are here and you were selected, that should give you some thoughts of your task in the future. Questions? They know everything. Yes, please.
I have a question.
Louder so they can hear it.
Yes, I have a question about like stage fright. Was there a moment in your career or in your lives where you kind of had a moment of acceptance of stage fright and then things were different from then on, or is stage fright something that's ever present anytime you perform or perform?
How are you what's your definition of stage fright? That's a kind of a big...
Well, I guess the most important part of it is losing a bit of the control while you're performing.
I don't know about that, but I'm always extremely nervous. I don't think that will never go away. I mean, I feel like I think it's not necessarily attached to music, it's attached to dance, it was attached to this. I mean, I've seen that it moves from one thing to another because it has to do with your level of anxiety in general. And so you could say that maybe you inherit that or you pick that up from your biological family, or maybe not. Maybe it's just something, a gene that, got into me. But it's just, I know that I'm going to be extremely nervous, and I just accept it. I mean, if I haven't been able to get over it in 78 years, I think it's safe to say it's not going anywhere. So.
But I can't imagine when you were recording the etudes.
Well, first of all, I mean, I have when I recorded the etudes, I have a way of all of those high-def videos things. It's part of a project which I hope I'll be able to finish when I get better. But I don't record, I play everything through twice, and that's it. I mean, I'm not like, those etudes were done in 5 hours. So there was one run through, and then actually there's a change of the mic a little bit and the pianos. And then there was a problem with batteries. They had to go out and blah, blah, blah. And then I did it again. And there were just one or two retakes of a couple places. And then that was it. I mean, I just don't, because it's not ever going to be perfect. And usually the first time you play something through, it's musically, it's the most inspired. The more you play it, the more contrived it gets. So, since it's not going to be perfect anyway, I mean, I can't stand to listen to myself because I don't know what you're supposed to hear, but I hear this and that and this and why did you do this and how about that? all I know, I mean, for me, when I go to the piano, I know, I mean, even now that I'm just starting to play a little bit more, I don't play anything that I played or that I've recorded the same way. It's just, I don't even know why I did it then, but that was then, and here is now. And one of my big things about teaching is to try and get all of you to play differently, not to create and recreate the same performance and really make it secure so that nothing goes wrong, because something is going to go wrong. It's going to be, I mean, you don't have any control over that. You don't feel the same way every day. So that, starting from that point is, I think, lethal. That's my own personal thing. So there's no question about the fact I practiced a lot before recording those etudes. I thought maybe you're never really ready, but there was a time when I thought, okay, I don't want to practice these anymore, so we're going to do it. And that's, that's one way, that's my personal decision.
For those who don't know about it, it's one of the most remarkable.
Well, I don't.
Well, let me say it. It's okay. Shut your ears.
Okay.
It is a remarkable achievement, because what Miss Penny does, she actually modulates to the next key, and it seamlessly moves. And then when she finishes, you kind of feel empty. It's gone. What happened? The time just went.
Well, there's also I don't know if that's even such a high change, but like there's some changes that I made in like the ocean etude. I don't know if you noticed that. Just to make it more like the ocean. I think,
Well, that's personal.
I don't think that these composers wanted everything to be static. I think it's open, and I've always felt that way. It's partly because of who I studied with and the live musicians that I've heard, but I don't believe in cookie cutter performances at all. I mean, they just don't have any significance.
I mean, to answer your question, you're not the only one. Everybody gets nervous.
Well, we know that Horowitz got tremendously. I
couldn't
saw Heifetz backstage. He was just shaking with nerves. Ruggiero, I played lots of concerts with Ruggiero Ricci. He was extremely nervous. I mean, and Starker would take what was that, Valium before he played, because he was so nervous.
I remember I was playing one of the solo recitals, and Starker was exiting, and I said, "Oh, I feel so nervous," and he says, "The best thing for you to is just go and vomit." I'll never forget it.
He used to throw up all the time before he had to play.
Yeah. So I think it's.
People don't talk about it, but nerves are all over the place.
Well, Annie Fisher, for instance, would smoke about 10 cigarettes and then would play something, and already her husband was waiting for it just as she walked on, 2 puffs, and she walked back on. I mean, that wasn't normal. But
well, Sebők would go and buy shoes.
Yeah.
So that was his way. He had like a huge collection of shoes.
Yep.
That's what he did when he had to play.
But the thing about it is, I kind of put it down to one possible reason. Creativity demands a certain overwhelming respect, overwhelming sort of feeling of dedication. And we feel that we owe it to the great composers. And we feel that this piece that I'm playing needs more than what I can give. And then you become inadequate, and all these things starts to play up, and then it becomes negative instead of saying, aren't I lucky that I have this opportunity? And you can turn it around psychologically, and it could mean, if you're well prepared. If you're not well prepared, it doesn't matter.
I think you get nervous because you care.
Absolutely, that's what I mean.
That's the bottom line. And if you don't care, then why play? So, you just have to go.
No creativity comes with, so what? Every note that every composer writes has its way of responsibility.
And we know that Chopin hated to perform.
Oh.
And he designed his life to avoid performance. So, that's it.
Anybody else?
Yes.
In fact, sorry, go ahead. Go, please. No.
What were you
What do we think while we're performing?
No, like, what are you thinking in your head at the moment? Like,
While you perform?
yeah.
I'm not thinking. I mean, I'm in another world usually. So, and if my mind enters in because somebody's cell phone goes off or something happens, I go back to that place. I think it's important to be, whether you want to say in love with the piece or not, or inspired enough so that you have that highway that you can stay with the music.
Do you remember Abby Simon used to sing or hum loud? I asked him once when he was in Houston, I said, I was in Indiana, I always wanted to ask you why you hum. He says, well, this is the only way when I lost my way that I could get back.
Well, he also, if you feel like you're going to lose your way, when you feel like your concentration is going, so it has to be some way back. That's one way. The other one is, feeling the keyboard more. There are different techniques that one can use, but I mean, it's nice to have ways of preventing memory lapses, and it's also nice to know how to recover when you have one. I don't think there's anybody in this room or anybody that's a serious musician that hasn't had a memory lapse. It's not because there's a short that occurs somewhere. And really, it's not that will it or won't it occur, it's what do you do when that happens? So that's a really important thing to explore inside yourself, because you never know.
Wow. One of the things in front of everybody I'm promising Rebecca, she gave me a 50-minute interview of Sebők on Hungarian television. Do you know when it was taken? I don't know. I didn't look at it.
He looks younger.
Old.
No, he's
He looks young?
Younger than when I studied with him, for sure. Maybe about 10 years before I came.
Oh, well, maybe I got a different video
No,
than
it's
you
the
do.
same. He's not. It was before we were there.
That film?
I think so.
No.
Well, then
Can't
it was
be,
when
because
we
he
were
looks, he is very marked in his face. Or maybe that's the still photograph.
Maybe. I don't know.
But anyway, in front of you, I kind of promised her that I will translate it, and
with
somehow
English subtitles, so we can
somehow
understand
with English subtitles.
I could put it on YouTube if you just do that.
Well, I have to get the English subtitles onto the film somehow.
No,
I
have somebody that can do that too.
also, so I just have to come up. But then you have to be.
You just need the translation of what.
Yeah,
is he
but when
saying.
he's speaking, you have to somebody have to stand there and say, "Not now, now." He's saying it now. So I will try to do it. I promise you that if I come back, then we will have it live here, because it is a genuinely heartwarming thing, and it brings back one of the things that I remember that his wife told me, that when he passed away, he felt that he was so much more to do. He felt that...
Well, his diagnosis, remember, was so sudden.
Yes.
And he was completely caught off guard by his liver cancer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he didn't make an effort to get a cure.
No. So he felt that he has so much to do, and she said something about that he was looking forward to the time when he would become tired of teaching or tired of performing. But he was renewed, he had a renewed energy at the age, just suddenly when he passed away. But basically I'm hoping that the film, which I haven't seen, the video, gives an inkling of his wisdom, which is indescribable for us. Because
well, we don't know what it's. It'll be interesting to see what he's talking about, because I can't understand a word.
Well, I do. But I'm hoping that it will interest you of another human being who went through life, who gave music as part of his life, but also so many other things. And that's something which we live with. And I hope that you get this information and hope that you will explore this possibility for yourself. That's all we're trying to do here.
Anything else? Yes.
I'm just wondering, like, I got many new pieces to learn this summer, and
You got many what?
I got many new pieces to
Yeah.
learn this summer, and I'm just thinking about, like, how would you work when you just start learning a new piece? Like, would you focus on the big image first and then add more details on it?
What piece are you talking about?
I'm learning, like, Rachmaninoff Concerto number 3.
First, you have to learn the notes.
One at a time. One at a time.
And what else?
And for Claudia, Romeo and Juliet Suite, and then the Beethoven Sonata. So I've heard like 2 ways of learning a new piece. One is like you run through the whole piece, and like when you feel that some places need to be worked, and you start working on details. And another way is like you start working on details first and build them up together.
You're leaving out the whole thing about, I mean, I don't know that much about you, but I don't know if you can sight read any of these pieces, and if so, how well you can sight read any of these pieces. One of the dangers of just running through the piece and not working with the kind of detail is that, you know, I've known pianists that can read and play anything, and nothing is ever refined because it's so easy for them to sight read and play, so it's always rough. So I can't say that would be your problem because I don't know you well enough, and I don't know if you're a fast learner, a slow learner, a good sight reader, a medium sight reader. But I sure wouldn't learn all those pieces at the same time because you can't devote enough focus. You know, it's time for my class. Professor Unga.
I'm off.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'll just move.